Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to be reacting to a video of Dr. Rhonda Patrick on the PBD podcast and her just basically just critiquing the society growing dependence on GLP-1, aka Ozempic, the drug that Hollywood is abusing the hell out of, if you ask me. Anyway, so let's take a look at the video. I'm going to give you a little bit of my commentary and we'll take it from there.
In the shortcut era, if you think about, Serena Williams, I think she did a GLP-1 commercial for Ozempic. No, it wasn't Ozempic. It's a different company she did, even for Super Bowl. You see her when she played tennis, you see what she looks like today. The average woman looks at that and says, if she couldn't do it naturally, why should I try to do it naturally with exercise? Oprah Winfrey, don't know if you saw this clip on The View. Rob, can you pull this clip up on The View of what she said? She's on The View, and she says, it took me this many years to realize that being fat is not my fault. It's my genetics or it's my DNA. And by the way, you may agree with her. Go ahead and play this clip, Rob. Go for it.
All these years, I thought I was overeating. I was standing there with all the food noise, what I ate, what I should eat, how many calories was that, how long was it going to take. I thought that that was because of me and my fault. Yeah. Now I understand that if you carry the obesity gene, if that is what you have, that is what makes you overeat. You don't overeat and become obese. Right. Obesity causes you to overeat. Right. Obesity causes you to have all of that food noise. And what the GLP-1s have done for me, and I know a number of other people, is to quiet that noise.
Yeah.
Do you agree with her?
No.
Okay, tell me why.
Okay, so this is going to be a very long-winded answer.
Please.
Because there's a lot of components there to unpack. I mean,
because the average person watches this. She's 72 years old, looking like that. They're going to say, why wouldn't I do it?
Right. So there's a lot of things to unpack here. Okay, first of all, there's no just obesity gene. Okay.
I'm going to pause the video there. So I just want to inform you what you just witnessed, okay? What you just saw was a high-profile celebrity endorsement. Let me repeat myself again. What you just saw was a high-profile celebrity endorsement. That's all it is. So that's all it is. So you have this celebrity who's worth billions of dollars telling you that nothing worked. She pretty much tried every possible option out there to lose fat, and it didn't work. And the only solution to her fat gain problem was a pharmaceutical drug. Sounds like a lot of bull to me. So sounds like a lot of bull to me, man. Sounds like nothing more than just lies and deceptions from Hollywood celebrities. That's what it sounds like to me. So here's the thing. If you're an adult, you can make your own decisions and you can take whatever drug you like. But promoting a drug, knowing that the drug does have adverse effects, to me, I'm sorry. That's a bit, that you're insulting my intelligence, right? You're coming off a bit disrespectful, if you ask me. So that's my issue here. If you want to take the drug, that's fine. But promoting it, that's a whole different thing. That's my issue. That's my issue. And let me be very clear here. There are people out there that have a tough time losing weight. That does exist. And I'm not disregarding that. I am not disregarding that. And let's say Oprah is one of those people who is having a hard time losing weight. She's worth billions of dollars. So she has the resources to reach out to experts to help her lose weight and to help her get in good physical shape. Where other people have 2 jobs, they have a family, they are incredibly busy, okay, which I can understand why it would be hard for them to be physically active. So I'm sorry. She has no excuses. So no excuses at all. So but yeah, so let's talk about a little bit of the adverse effects of Ozempic, right? So I was doing a little bit of research, and what I was reading was slow digestion. It can cause nausea. It can cause constipation. It can cause gallbladder issues, possible thyroid cancer risk. These are preclinical studies from what I'm seeing. And then also, one that I think that's common sense, which is dependency on the drug. So stopping Ozempic often leads to rebound hunger and weight regain, because the habits haven't changed. That just makes total sense, because if you're relying on a drug to lose weight and you're not changing your eating habits or exercising consecutively, of course that's going to happen. That's just common sense. Anyway, so let me just continue the video and give you a little bit more of my commentary, and we'll take it from there.
There are, genes that are associated with predisposing someone to gaining fat easier and affecting satiation and things like that easier, right? But it's not like there's just one obesity gene that makes you obese. With that said, okay, what she's talking about here with it wasn't my fault, you have to realize that we have studies now where you can take, there's healthy men, okay, they're not overweight, they're not obese, and you can put them on a high caloric, ultra processed food diet for 5 days. And what I mean by that is they're consuming 1,200 to 1,500 more calories per day, predominantly from processed foods, the cereal you were talking about. This is the food that's high in added sugar and saturated fat. And what happens is it causes their brain to become insulin resistant. Yes, you can cause your brain also to become insulin resistant. We usually think about, our cells in our body becoming insulin resistant. What happens when your brain becomes insulin resistant is the following. For one, insulin in the brain plays a very important role, and that role is to basically tell the body how to store fat and how to use energy and whether or not you're satiated after eating a meal. And what happens is when you're insulin resistant in the brain, it all gets messed up. And so your body starts to store fat, not as what's called subcutaneous fat, that kind of fat that you can pinch and see. It's visceral fat. This is the belly fat. This is the fat that's deeply surrounding your organs. This is the very dangerous type of fat, because this fat is metabolically active. It is generating inflammation. It is constantly being metabolized in what's called free fatty acids, which then cause insulin resistance, right? And so what happens is that these individuals, these healthy young men, all of a sudden, even though they didn't really gain much weight on the scale, they gained visceral fat and they were no longer, satiated. So what happens is when you become insulin resistant, both in the brain and in the body, so visceral fat gaining, they were gaining fat around their liver. I mean, they were gaining fat, this visceral fat that is really, really dangerous. That visceral fat, what happens is every time you eat, a meal that's got a lot of glucose, for example, a refined, ultra-processed meal, your body makes insulin, but you're insulin resistant, so you're not able to respond to that insulin. And so what happens is your body overcompensates and produces, your pancreas causes more insulin to be released as an overcompensation to help your body bring that glucose into your muscle or into your adipose tissue. And then what happens is your blood sugar crashes. And so that tells the brain, oh, I'm in a crisis. I need energy right now. And you crave these high energy, high calorically dense foods. And it's this vicious cycle where you start to overeat more. You can totally reset that system by decreasing your calorie intake. And there's a variety of ways of doing that. And also by including high intensity interval training. Any type of aerobic exercise is good. It causes you to lose visceral fat. Even if you don't shed the pounds on the scale, the losing of the visceral fat is the key, because that's the whole cycle of basically disrupting your satiety hormones, how you feel, satiated after you eat, or like hungry, all of a sudden you're hungry even though you just ate a meal, right? That's all part of insulin resistance and visceral fat. And so if you reduce your calorie intake, and there's ways you can do that, counting calories is one. A lot of people like intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is something that I do. And it's really, I'm middle-aged, right? I told you I'm 47. And I've realized that everything that I do, even though I've been doing it for years, all of a sudden, as your hormones start to change, you do start to kind of get more visceral fat. And that's something that's known to happen with women as they're aging, right? I had to cut calories. That was the main thing I had to do, even though I was doing high intensity exercise, all that stuff. Calorie cutting is the number one way that you can actually lose visceral fat and ultimately lose weight. And essentially the GLP-1, receptor agonists, these drugs that are Ozempic and all the other next generation ones are essentially doing that. You're causing yourself to be satiated, right? So it's essentially doing what intermittent fasting is doing, but it's also doing other things. It's slowing gastric emptying, right? So you're basically the food sitting around in your intestines longer, which
It sits there longer.
yes.
It's not. It doesn't accelerate the immune system.
So the GLP-1 receptor agonists like Ozempic, so semaglutide, they're slowing what's called gastric emptying. So the food it stays in your intestines longer, which is part of why you're satiated. There's a lot of course, side effects, but intermittent fasting, basically, you can.
All right, I'm going to pause the video from there. So I'm going to kind of just give a little bit of my insight on what she just said. So basically, she was citing a study of healthy, non-obese young men consuming about 1,500 calories, and a lot of those calories were consumed by ultra-processed foods. And ultra-processed foods, as you know, are high in sugar, high in saturated fat, and this was consumed within 5 days. So basically, what she's really touching on is the fact that even though these young men didn't gain a lot of weight, but they did gain visceral fat. And visceral fat is the worst fat you can have, okay? Because it's the fat that is surrounding your organs. Now, and the thing about the visceral fat, it releases inflammation, free fatty acids, it worsens the insulin resistance, and it creates this vicious cycle where blood sugar crashes, intense craving, overeating, and then boom, more visceral fat. Hopefully that makes sense. I was just trying to simplify it. So now when it comes to resetting that, as she said, yes, counting your calories, being on a calorie deficit. So meaning being on a calorie deficit means that you are burning more calories than you're consuming. Performing aerobic exercise, such as HIIT, high intensity interval. So performing any sort of aerobic exercise and then being on a calorie deficit is going to be very important to losing that visceral fat or any body fat at all. Now, I agree with all these things. It's just I do have a caveat here. So let me see if I'm able to articulate this. A lot of people, when they're trying to get in shape, they usually become obsessed with cardio, right? You see this a lot. A lot of people are just obsessed with cardio. They'll do like the Stairmaster, they'll do incline treadmill or just running a lot, jogging, etc., right? So they become very obsessed with cardio. And don't get me wrong, cardio is healthy for you. But if you overdo it, you're going to have an excessive weight loss, right? And for the most part. And excessive weight loss is not good. Okay. And this is what this is what Ozempic does as well too, right? Ozempic causes excessive weight loss. And the reason why excessive weight loss is very bad is because you're also losing muscle tissue, right? This happens to a lot of people. That's why when you lose a large amount of weight, people tend to be weaker, right? So even doing cardio naturally, right? Let's say you're doing cardio and you're eating pretty decently. If that's all you're doing, yeah, you're going to be in somewhat better health, but not entirely. Okay? And now if you take Ozempic and don't change your eating habits and don't exercise, that's even worse. Okay? So anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that performing some form of resistance training is incredibly important because acquiring muscle tissue onto your frame is going to help with strength. It's going to help with longevity, right? Resistance training is going to help with bone health, right? Bone density, stronger ligaments and tendons. So this is very important, right? For overall health and for body composition. So that's my only caveat. So I think Dr. Rhonda Patrick needs to mention this here in this conversation. It's not just aerobic exercises, but you also need to do some resistance training, because that's just as important or even more, right? I know there's a big debate about which is much more effective, resistance training or cardio. If you ask me, if you had to only do one, I would say resistance training. And when I say resistance training, I'm referring to multi-joint exercises, compound movements such as the squats, the deadlifts, the bench press, the overhead press, right? So anyway, so hopefully that makes sense. I was talking very fast. So anyway, so I do want to show a really quick clip of celebrities on Ozempic. So I do have a clip here from Rubin Report talking to Dr. Drew and just showing some celebrities on Ozempic. So let me just get that for you here. So
point, does someone have to say something to what's her name, Osborne, Kelly Osborne? I mean, like, I know there's a series of them, so I don't even mean to pick on her, but when you see these celebrities get up there, like, it doesn't take, I don't have to have all of the medical history that you have to know that something is not right about this stuff.
It's a new kind of eating disorder, right? And one of the main features of disturbed eating is loss of muscle mass. And you can see it. And it's one of the there are so many problems with GLP-1s that we are ignoring. There's going to be a ton of big class action lawsuits soon, and in fact, they're already starting. I'm aware of several, because not only is this an unhealthy way to lose weight, not only do you go above your baseline when you go off the medicine, so doctors are saying you got to be on it the rest of your life. That is a dangerous statement whenever doctors say that about medicines that are new, especially. We're seeing bowel obstructions, we're seeing sepsis, we're seeing gastroparesis, we're seeing just tons of very serious medical problems that are not being sort of brought into the conversation of the risk reward associated with these medicines. They're not bad medicines. There's no such thing as a bad molecule. It's just the risk reward is not being properly analyzed for every given case.
Ryan Seacrest.
Ah.
Like, I don't know if he's using that. I don't know if he's unhealthy or dealing with something. Always liked, and I worked with him once at a New Year's event in Dick Clark that we were on TV on ABC together in 2018 or something. He's lovely. He was so kind. And I saw him the other day and I got scared because he's so thin. So
yeah, I'm telling you.
He's on?
No,
yeah, I'm going to pause the video there. So yeah, I just wanted to show that quick clip. You can see how bad this is getting, how Hollywood celebrities are abusing this drug. So yeah, it's just not a good look. And so yeah, it's, you got to be very careful with these pharmaceutical drugs. They're not miracle workers. So just stick with the basics. Anyway, so this video is already long. So if you liked it, just subscribe, comment, like, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.